Let's talk Merrimack. I'm your host for today, Jen McGinnis. A little about me. I've lived in Merrimack for about 16 years and I keep pretty busy at home between teaching, soccer for my boys, and more than a few animals. The goal of the show is to talk about things that concern Merrimack residents and to encourage you to get involved in the town. Today's show focuses on the Free State Project. Today I'm joined by Jean Deach of Granite State Matters. Jean, welcome. Could you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Jen, for having me. I'm so pleased. Well, when my husband and I moved to New Hampshire, it was an exciting, innovative, vibrant place full of young people and children. Peterborough, where I live, was the world center for computer magazines, over 100 published there.
Wow.
Yeah. But when we sold our last tech company, I saw that the state was starting to change and lose a lot of the characteristics that had made it so strong. Its fantastic schools and its attraction to young people. And I saw that the state was starting to encourage the wealthy and to benefit corporations over the children and working families. And so I decided to investigate. I actually served as New Hampshire senator for one term. And what I learned was that the Free Staters are a group of naive idealists who are being used by wealthy and large corporations to turn New Hampshire into something to take advantage of Granite Staters. And they hope that by turning it into a libertarian homeland, they can eventually spread those libertarian policies throughout the United States. Now, I know this sounds like a conspiracy theory, right? But listen on, because 3 of Merrimack's reps and Merrimack's state senator vote with the Free Staters Liberty Alliance.
Thank you, Jean. So we're going to be covering today some of your work with Granite State Matters and this research. So let's start with an overview.
Well, I'm going to talk about who are the Free Staters, and then who are these wealthy and corporations using them, and then talk about how we can stop them.
Okay. Well, let's not hesitate and dive right in. Who are the Free Staters?
Well, let's start with what they've done for New Hampshire, or to Merrimack and other parts of New Hampshire. A lot of people know that Governor Kelly Ayotte signed the expansion of school vouchers for wealthy families' private school tuition recently. It's what has swelled the voucher budget from $28 million to $100 million in a year where the state's having trouble paying its bills anyway. But how many people know who takes credit for passing this bill? So I'm reading now from the June 2025 Free State Project newsletter. Make no mistake, this school choice victory is a product of the Free State movement. So who are the Free Staters and their political alliance, Liberty Alliance, and Americans for Prosperity, giving subsidies to New Hampshire's wealthiest families? Well, they're libertarians, and libertarians have been in the U.S. for a century, but they never got more than 1 or 2% of the vote. In 2001, a Yale student named Jason Sorens came up with the idea that all libertarians should move and take over a single small state. And because of how easy it is to get elected to the House of Representatives here, they chose New Hampshire. So thousands have moved here with the goal of turning New Hampshire into a libertarian homeland. I'm reading again from their June newsletter. The Free State Project itself only works to invite and welcome more libertarians to resettle in New Hampshire. Some of the movers go on to serve in the state legislature. Some more help as activists with liberty-aligned political groups like the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance and Americans for Prosperity. This is from their newsletter. Many of the Free Staters who move here, they're just coming here to work or to farm or to start a small business. And meanwhile, they help elect the Free Staters who can afford to run for office and serve in a part-time volunteer legislature. But what about those other two groups mentioned in the project's newsletter, the Liberty Alliance and the Americans for Prosperity? Well, the Liberty Alliance, as I'm sure you know, is the political arm of the Free State Project. They tell New Hampshire House and Senate members how to vote on so-called liberty bills, and then they rank the legislators on how they vote. And they primary GOP members who don't vote as instructed. They include both the Free State movers and native legislators who vote with them. And this is how the Free State Project claims credit for passing Liberty Alliance bills such as the voucher expansion.
Well, as we continue forward, would you like to talk more about the groups empowering those Free Staters who's supporting this movement? Or have you about covered that?
No.
Okay.
So where do Americans for Prosperity come into the picture? Well, the AFP is a national political action group founded by the Koch brothers. Now, a lot of you probably don't know that David Koch of Koch Industries, the fossil fuel magnates, ran for vice president in 1980. And this was his platform. The Libertarian Party policy platform to be abolished. The Department of Energy, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Food and Drug Administration, the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, Federal Communications, FTC, NLRB, and on and on and on, to the Federal Reserve, Social Security, welfare, public schools, and taxation. 1980. That platform gained only 1% of the vote. So afterwards, the Koch formed the Americans for Prosperity to change the United States into a libertarian country. They spent decades funding libertarian professorships at colleges, working through the courts to allow the wealthy to dominate elections, ending up with Citizens United. They helped the Federalist Society to dominate the Supreme Court. They also helped fund ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which comes up with templates for bills like the voucher bill. In New Hampshire, the AFP sent out thousands of postcards the first time the voucher bill passed, saying, "What would you do with $4,600 towards your child's education?" They knocked thousands of doors and made phone calls in support of Liberty Alliance candidates. This is a national organization funded by the Koch brothers in New Hampshire. The Kochs also helped the movement by donating $1 million to St. Anselm's College. And then they hired Free State founder Jason Sorens as director of the Center for Ethics in Society. After the vouchers first passed, Sorens and the vice president of the Charles Koch Foundation, a fellow named William Ruger, declared New Hampshire freest of the 50 states at a celebration at the Cato Institute with Governor Sununu. But the question is, the Kochs, of course, want to get rid of the EPA and OSHA because they're fining them for all kinds of things and trying to regulate their businesses. But why are they so determined to destroy public education? Well, lowering taxes is one reason. But just as important, children must not be taught to expect democracy, social services, publicly funded infrastructure, or equal opportunity. And of course, they want to crush teachers' unions. They'd like to hire unskilled people for lower wages. And some of them own for-profit schools, like Betsy DeVos. But even more insidious than destroying our children's future is what they're trying to do to citizens' rights in New Hampshire. Last year, they campaigned heavily for a bill to bar any person or organization receiving government funds from testifying at hearings. They claimed, you wouldn't want your taxpayer dollars going to lobbyists, would you? But what that bill would have done is to stop Merrimack town councilors from testifying on bills affecting the town, the Department of Children, Youth, and Family Services from testifying about children, and Merrimack Superintendent Olson couldn't testify about schools. In other words, if they quash publicly funded voices, only lobbyists funded by corporations and the wealthy get to have their voices heard. The purpose of having publicly funded organizations is to serve the interests of the public, not just the wealthy and corporations.
Well, this is all excellent, if intense information, but importantly, how can we take back our state?
Well, I think there's so much noise coming from DC, and there's so much in the news that it's overwhelming.
Yes.
So my recommendation and my hope is that we'll make the ending of this story a good one by focusing on our state and what we can do in New Hampshire. It's important to remember, Free Staters are less than 1% of the population. There's no reason why they should control the New Hampshire House. And in fact, the director of the Free State Project, Eric Brakey, said the reason he moved here was that Maine ousted him and other libertarians from the Maine legislature in 2018. Once voters find out what libertarians really stand for, they wake up and vote against them. It happened here in New Hampshire, in Croydon, where the Free Staters cut the school budget in half, you remember, and then tried to privatize the public gunstock ski area. At that point, voters woke up and they booted them from office. So we can do it if we ignore all the distractions and focus. So step one is make as many people aware of what's going on as possible. And I'll tell you about some tools and resources that we at Granite State Matters have in just a moment. And step two, build connection and community and trust with more people. There are so many organizations here. You can get involved with it and meet new people that you aren't part of your bubble, you know. Our Lady of Mercy Knitting Ministry, did you know about that?
I did not.
The Merrimack Valley Trail Riders, you have a gazillion hiking groups here. Merrimack Parks and Recreation are looking for volunteers to help with the Halloween party. So there are multitudes of ways to expand your network of trust, and this will make more people open to hearing how to help and will help us all become a stronger community.
Fantastic. You have provided a wealth of knowledge in this area. So does Granite State Matters focus on any one particular issue, or is it an organization focused on the state at large?
We're focused on people knowing what the Free Staters are up to and responding to give them a voice in government that's appropriate to the size of their population.
Fantastic. Vouchers has been the most publicly well-informed area of their impact recently. I know that it's been an issue at school board meetings, that as at our deliberative session, it was a topic that came up. So voters are generally aware that school vouchers are taking money out of public schools. I'm wondering if there are any other areas of focus of Free Staters, besides the public education, the vouchers, that is as widespread as that particular campaign has been?
Well, I think there are things that have huge impacts on people. Recently, the head of the New Hampshire House is a Free Stater.
Yes.
Jason Osborne. And recently, they tried to pass caps on school funding, and they didn't pass. So he said, well, we've got to put a leash on these towns and force them to do our will. So they're trying to pass laws for zoning, energy, school funding, and so forth, pass them all at the state level so towns have less authority over what they're doing. For instance, they've just passed a bill which would require Class 6 roads to allow any kind of building on them without review, as long as they didn't ask for town services. So the kinds of things that they're putting in, the people in the Energy Committee, Representative Wendy Thomas, who's on the Energy Committee, said that they are talking about putting in cybercurrency servers, AI servers. These take huge amounts of energy, so they would have their own little nuclear plants there. They're trying to, I know that some are trying to start military training camps where people come in and they have temporary facilities for them to live in and to train. So basically, you will have these areas that would belong to Free Staters and are just kind of black holes where no one knows what's going on. And
Interesting.
Yes, and the cybercurrency or the servers, large server farms, you can hear them a mile away.
Yes.
They're very, very noisy.
Very disruptive. It's ironic that libertarians or Free Staters are so focused on control of the locals in order to enforce their vision on New Hampshire.
Well, this is what I try to explain. If you look at what's been happening in this state, it's the Kochs, what the Kochs gain, and other billionaires. It's hardly just them anymore. They're quite old. The new ones are the Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen and so forth, Elon Musk. But what they gain by libertarian policies is removal of all regulations, so they can do whatever they want to environmentally, energy-wise. If you hear about Elon Musk's facility in Tennessee, all kinds of lawsuits against the environmental impacts of what's going on there. So this frees them to do as they want without anyone. And what happens when you remove regulation, and why I call the Free Staters naive, is that when you remove all regulation, might equals right.
Yes.
The people who are the wealthiest do whatever they please, they buy whatever they want, and you are stuck with what's left.
Yes.
So.
We certainly have the history to tell us that. I wonder, and this is a little outside of your area, so tell me if this isn't something you're familiar with, but I know that the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire is somewhat of a pariah amongst the National Libertarian Party. Is the Free State Movement part of that, or do you have any sense of what has caused the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire to be so much more extreme?
I think there's a single person named Jeremy Kaufman who may be the cause of that.
I think that might be right.
He tweets violent tweets and so forth, and he does this stating that it gets him a lot more hits on his Twitter feed.
Well, who doesn't need a dopamine?
Yes,
a dopamine post.
Yeah. So, but if my concern is that what you see is that Kelly Ayotte is adopting these policies. Now, Kelly Ayotte and Blackstone, where she was on the board of Blackstone. She got $750,000 from them, and basically they took a lot of the houses that were lost during the recession and rented them back at high prices to the people. So she took $750,000 out of the profits of that. Well, she is more on the plutocrat, wealthy side of of things helping the people who are behind the Free State policies. I wouldn't consider her one of the naive in the least, but she works with the Free Staters because the group I haven't even mentioned, which spent $1 million in New Hampshire elections in 2024, is the Texas Young Americans for Liberty. They train legislators, state legislators, how to vote for libertarian policies. Most states send 1 or 2 or 3 people to this training. New Hampshire sent 94.
That's wild. 94 out of our 400.
State legislators, yes. So this, the level of impact of this Young Americans for Liberty group is almost as great as Americans for Prosperity, and it's the same kind of fossil fuel and other wealthy corporations who are funding Young Americans for Liberty.
Well, I could ask you follow-ups for hours, but I would rather help viewers get a sense of where they can learn more, get involved, get those tips for taking back the state. So could you tell viewers how can they connect with Granite State Matters?
Well, go to granitestatematters.org. It's as I say, we can't control what's happening in DC, but we can fix this state. And if we wake up people to what's going on, and I hope you will go to granitestatematters.org. There you will find things that you can share. A 9-minute video, much faster than this conversation, a testimonial from a former Free Stater talking about her experiences with the party, and the threats that came after she tried to leave, or she has left. There's a flyer with a list of current Liberty Alliance legislators. There's an e-book called Who Are the Free Staters that you're welcome to share. And you can sign up for our newsletter that provides actions to protect our state. You can also request an in-person presentation here in Merrimack or wherever you happen to live, or if you have groups elsewhere. And I would be happy to speak about what's happening to a group you belong to. You'll find a list of other speaking presentations, and in fact, coming up this Wednesday, there'll be a webinar sponsored by the Unitarian Universalist Action Committee, and that's listed on our website. You can register from there. So I hope that you will look at the website and follow up.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jean. Merrimack, that's our show for today. We'd like to hear your ideas for show topics, so reach out. We're at talkmerrimack@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Facebook or Blue Sky at Talk Merrimack. I look forward to our next conversation.